I think one of the most beautiful things that you can have is a bad day in an environment where you frequent. Let me explain myself. I'm not saying you have the worst day ever, right? If you start like cussing and cursing and just like looking people in the eyes and saying horrible things to them, sure, that's pretty bad, and that requires a level of extreme accountability. But if people see you lose your patience a little bit and get a little bit moody, start maybe losing your head a little bit, but still trying to stay grounded, I think they can see a little bit of your internal fight to stay within a realm of clarity and sanity despite the circumstances. And I think that if you enter that kind of community with a commitment not to relieve yourself from that community, I do believe that it can be beneficial in the long run. Sure, it's part of the growing pains. Unfortunately, and I will say this, whenever you enter a new milieu, a new community, a new environment, you're bound to have certain days, or at least portions of the day, that don't go as favorably as you would like. And I personally think that can be beautiful when observed by others, because they might be offended by it at first. They might be, especially if they don't see you at your best. But I think that if you commit yourself to that community, odds are they're going to see you at your best and your worst. And from my experience, when people see you at your worst, they will be grumpy with you for a little while. They might avoid you, etc. But they will eventually come around when they start seeing you at your best. And sometimes it will just be with your interaction with one or two people. They'll see how you handle situations. They'll learn how to address you in a way that is beneficial to you, and you'll learn how to address them in a way that's beneficial to them. I was thinking about a younger person in my life. I'm not going to say who, not going to say where. I was thinking about him. I noticed when I addressed him one way, very disrespectful. When I addressed him another way, he left with a sense of utter respect, even if it wasn't within the best context, but he was being very respectful. There's, not humans aren't the only mammals that function like this. There's a cat, a feline in my life. Now, I used to be way too strict in the disciplinary sense with this cat. Literal cat, I'm talking about an actual feline. And, but I started being more gentle with him. And then instead of trying to stop the poor behavior with a harsher discipline, I tried to transmute it by distracting his attention when he was performing bad behavior. Distract his attention and energy to a place where he could express that energy, maybe even those feelings, in a way that was healthier. That's the thing. When you're dealing with large groups of people, if you're in one of those kind of jobs, or if it's just part of your life, etc., you are bound. You are incredibly likely to end up in circumstances where you will discover, even if just one person, there are times that you're likely to come across in your life where you're simply going to see someone, you see someone, human, cat, whatever, and with that someone, you're likely to have rough days in the beginning while you're both learning each other. And of course, once you start to learn each other, that's when the beauty arises. Once you've been in a community for like a year, 2 years, 3 years, you start to be able to have this kind of magical capacity because you can pick each other up when you're having a rough day. Now, in communities where you might be there regularly, but maybe a high turnover rate, there's a lot of places that are like that. You might not be able to get with people long enough, but there might be a few people who you do, and other people can observe those relationships, and you might not always be able to help when the other person is down, but they might be able to do so for you. It's messy because it's life. Now, obviously, I don't go into details here. I'm not going to, but I can give generalizations that really touch at the heart of these issues, which is that for me in my day-to-day, I realize that for some people in my life, something that usually seems to work didn't. And instead of lingering in that grouchiness, oh, how you doing, Shakwa? Shakwa or Shakwa? Instead of lingering in that grouchiness, my mentality right now is, well, what can I do better next time? What can I change? May not even do better, but what can I try that's different to see if that'll work? I've already had a few minutes to try something that I think worked a little better, but problem, of course, is that sometimes you only have a few minutes when you're used to having at least close to an hour. What's really a shame to me is that my day started off great. And in fact, I was originally supposed to do the thing that I had basically asked to do. But things happen. There are needs that need to be met. And I willingly met the need. I don't know that I entirely had much of a choice, but I probably could have argued my case for sure. I chose not to because at the end of the day, even if I'm grouchy, and even if me doing things that other people don't want to do makes me grumpy and puts other people in a bad mood sometimes, at the end of the day, those people are often much, if not practically always, much more happy that I do the things that they don't want to do anyway. The grouchiness is something that can be overcome sometimes. The thing that I do that somebody else doesn't want to do, well, that's a completely different animal, oftentimes. Well, I'm not really talking about traffic, Mark. I mean, there's not really an average for most Americans. I mean, I drive through the city, I drive through the country. I mean, I just came from a place that I could smell the manure. Someone was spreading manure over a field, I guess, and it was blowing over. It smells like it could have been, the smell might have gone for a mile or two. It was very pungent, very strong. My mother loves that. She grew up on a farm. I like it, especially when it's mild. And as pungent as it was, I'm not a big of a fan. LF for base grammar. User is a TE. What's a TEB? LF for base. Oh. I don't know what that is, friend. If that's code for something, LF. I don't know. But it's funny too. I come from very, very humble beginnings. And I'm still basically humble in what I have. So I do consider, and when I reflect upon interactions with certain people or groups of people, if they're coming from poverty like myself, and especially when it's younger people, I have to take that in consideration. If there's poor behavior, there's a good chance. I mean, pardon the language play, but if there's poor behavior, there's often something or someone's poor behind the scenes, because poverty often is accompanied by bad behaviors because of the unfortunate circumstances. So if I have a large group of younger people who are all misbehaving except for maybe two, there's a good chance that all of those people, or maybe all of them except for the two, or most of them at least, maybe some are taking it from the others, there's a good chance that most of those people are in poverty. And that's not, I mean, I come from pretty dire circumstances with regard to that, at least by American standards, you know. Going to school, growing up, stinky because you couldn't wash clothes, stuff like that. I mean, like, dude, I get it. I come from pretty humble circumstances. The man I am today is due to resistance. Most people would not have kept fighting as long as I have, and I am not stopping anytime soon. Of course, the way I dress now, even if it is from thrift store clothes and Five Below colognes for $5, I might smell pretty good at times, and I might look pretty good at most of the time, but it's largely a mask. I am very poor still. And I'll tell you this, I'm not stopping, but sometimes you gotta look past the mask. And as much as I sometimes want to just look at the behavior itself, if I don't consider the causes, I'm not doing those people justice, young as they may be. I have to consider that they might not have a bed to sleep on. They might be going to bed hungry. They might have nice clothes, but they could be hand-me-downs. They could be from thrift stores. Hey, they might be getting nice clothes instead of enough food to keep them from being hungry, for all I know. That's not unheard of, nor necessarily uncommon in some milieus. I have to keep that in mind. I have to keep in mind that a lot of the people I deal with might have things like, even autism or ADD, ADHD, schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder. I mean, there's a number of things that if I don't consider those things, I am not doing those people justice. And the way I behave around them has to be adjusted based on, at least in part, my considerations for these things. The first time I meet them, I might just treat them like I would treat anybody else, in the sense that I'm trying the same strategies or methods to get along, but to get things done. But if that's how I do it every single time with some people and not seeing the results, I have to consider other possibilities. And if I don't, I'm doing them an injustice. I am not being my best self, and as frustrating as that can be, to realize that I got to really change things up. I am already tired and exhausted as it is. How am I going to do that? Well, one day at a time, one moment at a time. I realized one of the issues that I was really facing was that I was going about things too quickly. And of course I'm thinking, sure, I want to get everything done. But can I really get everything done? If I can't even get some of things done, why would my aim be everything? Next time I meet with that milieu that I'm thinking about right now, I'm going to have to just be much more kind, much more slow and patient, and let the others be more strict if they want to. But the strictness doesn't seem like it's getting us anywhere. And if they haven't learned from my more strict peers and superiors by now, and that's clearly not working. something else has to be tried. And I think I'm going to try kindness. I'm going to try to ignore certain things that don't need to be addressed, which I already do, but more so I think for these people that I'm thinking of. Because I expended so much energy with these very special people in my life recently that I'm practically falling asleep right now, which is very dangerous. Especially since I have another shift ahead of me. So, for those particular people, I think next time it's just going to have to be being much more patient. I mean, at first it was coming out because I was grumpy. It came out more insultive in the way I was thinking about it. But I'm a little bit more grounded now that I'm on the road again. And, like, no, honestly, like, seriously, though. Like, deep down in my heart, like, I know that things like autism are a possibility. Those kind of things are very possible. So, sure, whereas some people might take it as an insult if I say that when I'm grumpy, it's a valid possibility. One of my best friends has autism. My brother, my half-brother, one of my half-brothers has autism. The other half-brother, I mean, I don't know, he shows some, well, I shouldn't say all that, but the possibilities there. I have plenty of people in my life who might, but haven't been diagnosed. I mean, and it's a spectrum. But when you consider it, that's kind of the thing. It's like, if I don't consider, like, first of all, I might consider that when I'm grumpy, and it might come out really bad at first. But when I'm more grounded, like I'm a little bit more grounded now, these are things that I do think about, because if I don't, that strictness that I had might not go away. Let me give another example. The cat I was talking about earlier, the literal cat, the feline, one of the things that helps me carry more empathy towards him is the realization, the understanding that he comes from a place of severe pain and trauma. And the poor cat, like, clearly carries PTSD. The cat was abandoned as a kitten, was left out for like days in the middle of the parking lot until one of my family members rescued him, waiting to see if the original quote-unquote owner would come back, but they didn't. And I'm trying to stay awake. If I stop talking, I might not. Although the sounds right now are helping a little bit, but they're also kind of a bit of a lullaby. Hitting my knee helps too, keep me awake. But no, it's very it's a very valid point. And whether we're talking about younger friends, older people, younger people, any age, I think it is very important to consider, are they struggling with poverty? Are they struggling with cruelty? Oh, look at these trees, wow. Are they struggling with autism, some sort of other psychosis? When we consider those things, empathy becomes much less of a, I wish I had empathy for them, to a reality, a lived reality. Because we don't have to confirm with 100% clarity that someone has psychosis or comes from poverty or comes from a situation that's super abusive, to know that those are possibilities and to grow from empathy in those areas. how I'm gonna stay awake today. I think I washed extra socks last night. I think what I want to do today, at least, is when I get off. No getting anything else done. I'm just gonna have to curtail it to the bed. Just go right to sleep. Because if I go right to sleep tonight, I should be able to get a full 5 hours of sleep, which would be really nice. My grandma used to survive on 4 hours of sleep and a half an hour to 2 hour nap. So I'm thinking I'm going to stop at the house, grab my physical alarm, and I might change the battery soon just to make sure it's good. I might even buy another one of those alarms so that both of them wake me up and make sure they really wake me up, because sometimes one's not enough. But no, I might take that with me in my break today. I might take a 20-minute nap. Honestly, and if I accidentally sleep a little bit over during work, it's not going to be the end of the world. But a big physical bell alarm should do the trick, and it should be good for a nice little nap. It really should. But yeah. I feel bad because earlier I said to another adult who worked in my one of my new milieus that a certain environment was the worst that I had seen in 11 years. Now, I audited my own memory internally and realized, well, okay, 10 years. You know, come to think of it, maybe 8. But no, like, I shouldn't have said that out loud. I shouldn't have said that out loud. And that was wrong. But I will say this. I am not perfect, and I'm not saying I'm never full of baloney in one way or another, but when it comes to my honesty, I'm honest to a fault in terms of the literal things I say. So it wasn't untrue what I said, but I shouldn't have said it out loud. I should have kept that thought in my mind. But sometimes when I'm more comfortable in a new environment, more comfortable in an environment, sometimes things will slip through. And they are true, but the perspective and the cadence, they're all wrong. And I shouldn't have said that was the worst of that kind of thing to happen in 11 or 10 years or whatever it really was. Because it's not their fault, and that just makes them feel bad at the end of the day. It's not like, you know what I mean? That's not the nicest thing to say. It's just not the nicest thing to say, and I was wrong for that. At the end of the day, if somebody is going through extreme poverty, or they're going through sickness, mental or physical, maybe both, it's not fair for me to keep that outside of my considerations. I don't know how I'm going to stay awake today. I'm tempted to actually call out of work on my other job. I just don't know how I'm going to keep doing this. You know, it's difficult living the life that I am. Jobs, cooking my own meals, washing my clothes manually in the sink by myself. Sure, I get help once in a while, about once a week, maybe twice on a good week. There is someone in my family who will wash a few of my clothes, and I'm grateful for that, sometimes more than a few. But it's not necessarily something that I can always rely upon, because I'm still washing my clothes physically sometimes. If I had a stay-at-home wife working 2 jobs and everything, and cooking my meals, cleaning my clothes, that would be fine. Or a wife that worked part-time and still did a lot of those things very consistently, sure. But in my current situation, I'm not with my wife at the moment. And I will admit that she's very good at those things. And by the way, it wouldn't have to be a wife. People are like, you're so sexist for saying that. It could be a wife working 65 hours a week or more, and her husband doing those things. I'm not saying it has to be a gender exclusive thing. I'm basically saying that I need to find myself with someone who can carry the weight in the relationship in such and such a way. If I were married to a man, I would hope that, given that I'm working 2 jobs, that the other man would do those things. You see what I'm saying? So it's not like a sexist thing, or it's a strict, this is how it has to be. No, but I'm thinking more of the fairness of the dynamics of living with somebody else. And of course, the current person I'm living with, I could be giving that person a whole heap load more money if I had it. Unfortunately, I put myself in a lot of debt. I can't afford to do that. That person I want to help out so much more than I do. And I used to. That person has helped me financially too. That's now like the money I give back. I was even thinking, because when I used to work a single full-time job and go to college while I was doing that, and I was giving that person, I think it was $300 to $600 a month. Now, adjusted for the incredible inflation that we've had recently, I think that would be more like $450 to like $650, $700 a month, which is pretty good to pay for half a room. It's a pretty good amount of money to pay for half a room. I'd say. And it's a good chunk of money regardless. And now that I can only afford like $300 to $350, it is what it is. But I'm trying to stay awake right now to work my second shift. It's like I'm doing what I can. I want to help the people in my life have better lives. And for many of the people in my life, I think I'm one of the only potential hopes for a change. And whether they carry that hope or I do, doesn't really matter. It seems to be true. It seems that I have the most potential out of a lot of the people I know. My brother is another one of the people that kind of has that kind of potential. But, it's like most people just don't seem to have that much ambition. And that might be because of things like depression, which inevitably is part of it. With things like depression in mind, not saying I never have depression from time to time, but the point is I just have too much determination and too much ambition to let anything like depression or an occasional rough day or bad day to hold me back from constantly trying to better myself so that I can better other people around me, including myself, of course, but certainly not excluding the people who might rely on me for hope and love, and eventually will probably rely on me financially in some way, or physically for physical help in older age, etc. So at the end of the day, I'm not going to give up. There are too many people who rely on even the hope in me being someone to rely on, let alone the people who already do on some level rely on me. Let me slow down. We got some friends here. Okay, we got another friend on my left. Both sides. Okay, everybody safe? Yep, everybody's safe. So, but yeah, it's like, What can I do? And I'm not perfect. I will mess up again and again, but I'm going to keep getting up every time I fall down. It's just who I am. What other choice do I have at this point? But I do have a choice, and plenty of people take the worst choice. Plenty of people take the many people just give up pretty early on, and they'll just settle for whatever they can have. I'm not going to give up. And it's funny too, that determination might actually be one of the reasons I'm not as far as I maybe should be. Because I go for my dreams, and if I set a goal, I do it. If I say something, I do it. And that's what the kind of the funny thing is, like, I had to correct myself earlier because I'm like, well, I'm going to throw everything away that's not picked up, including those jackets. And I was like, well, maybe not the jackets. And then one of the pencils that was still mostly intact, I was like, oh, okay, I'll consider this bin the trash. But yeah. I noticed at one of my new milieus that a lot of the people in that milieu and that environment don't have broom and dustpan. So I think I might stop by the Dollar Tree. Use tape to say who donated it. Maybe not even do that. But maybe, because sometimes I can take credit, even if it's just for worldly something. But I can definitely write it off of my taxes. Another thing, now that I'm teaching again, I definitely need to contact student loan forgiveness. It's dangerous to live stream and drive. Will you get focused? Well, here's the thing, my friend. If I wasn't talking, I might have gone to sleep. I was banging my knee there. So, yeah, I'm reading your comment. You have a good point. Sometimes live streaming and you can lose focus, but that's, I think, more associated with looking at your phone too much, reading the comments, or positioning your camera. If you're just like driving and focusing on staying awake, just talking sometimes can keep you awake and focused enough to at least get to your destination. As tired as I am, as exhausted as I am, sometimes talking is the only option. It's one of the reasons that I get very talkative when I am incredibly exhausted. I mean, I've been going through, like a lot of men in the world, I've been going through some pretty hard hell for the last, 11 years, I think? And that's a lot of men in the world, and, it's a good thing. But I will say that, talking keeps me awake, so, and what was your name? Valkyrie 3, yeah. Yeah, so my friend, yeah, it's a way to keep me awake. It's not losing focus. The people who lose focus when they do that are the ones reading the comments instead of driving and paying attention to the road. But some of you might have noticed I was banging my knee against and I have bad knees to begin with. It's painful, but I was banging my knee to keep myself awake. So, I get a little chatty when I'm tired. It keeps me awake. It annoys people, but it keeps me from falling asleep. And, yeah, when you're working over 60 hours a week, whether it's this or when I was working, full-time and going to university part-time and, whatever the case was, I've been kind of pulling a very similar kind of schedule for a very long time now. And it's been exhausting. And sometimes I get talkative because it keeps me awake. And who cares if it bugs people, because I need to keep functioning if I want to better my life. And, now I'm making more money than I would have otherwise if I hadn't kept going. And if I keep going now, I should be making more money in another, 2 years than I was previously, et cetera. So, it's just, it's something that works for me, and it works for a lot of other people who go through similar circumstances. And some people, there's a kind of tiredness where you just completely go silent. And I go there too sometimes. And there's a kind of tiredness where the only thing that's keeping you awake is physical pain and things like talking, listening to music, hearing a horn honking. it's one of the blessings, I think. Sometimes people will honk their horn, sometimes to mess with you, sometimes they're honking at somebody else. That's one of the things that I really enjoy, or I shouldn't say enjoy, but I'm thankful for, because it's one of those things that just keeps me up. There's little things like that. And yeah, 100%. But yeah, friends, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys later. And maybe I won't be talking, because if I'm feeling good and I'm feeling rested, or if I'm feeling like a good kind of tired, where I'm not practically passing out like I still am, I might be quiet, or I might be talkative. We'll just have to wait and see. But yeah. Take care, you guys.